We've got the football in focus back from the Tee It Up Indoors on Battleground. David Stroxler's Golf House here. Good place to be for golf, good place to be for football. Talking football in focus. Back for a Thursday, missed last week because of football games being played on Thursday, some Friday. Demetri Morrison with us. He broadcasts our games on GreensboroSports Radio, the Southwest Guilford games. And the Cowboys are 5-4 overall, 3-3. How close are they to making the playoffs, you think?
I think Southwest Guilford has a pretty good chance. You know, Grimsley's probably has the #1 seed locked up for sure. And then you have Northwest Guilford. And then I'm thinking Southwest is probably going to be fighting for that third spot.
Yeah, Southwest, maybe Page might be trying to pop in there too, I think. Possibilities.
Yeah, Page been getting some wins late in the season. They started off kind of rocky, but since they've switched over to conference play, they've been coming out with some unexpected wins.
Yeah, you look at that new deal they've got. They used to look at the overall record, where you finish in the conference, and now they've added the RPI to this thing too, make it more like college, I guess. They got the RPI, they're studying those numbers, and they stack them all up and rank them, and they begin to look at them. And for Grimsley, I think last check I saw, they were like the #1 ranked team in the state in the high school OT poll over all schools, public and private, you know, 1A all the way through 4A. So Grimsley, top team in the state, and Dudley was in that top group too. You look at that overall right now, Southwest versus Ragsdale last week, is that right?
Yes.
Talk about that game, son, because Southwest had some big plays in that game, and some of the players really stood out in that game.
Yeah, it was a pretty good game. It was closer than, or I should say, Southwest had more control than the scoreboard says. The scoreboard was closer. But Corbin Wilson opened the game up with a 96-yard kick return up the right sideline, but of course there was a flag on the play. Southwest has had lots, and when I say lots, I mean lots of issues this year as far as flags are concerned.
A lot of plays being called back.
A bunch of plays, or not even necessarily plays, maybe an offsides or a false start. I've seen them all. Any penalty that you can throw on the high school level, Southwest has got it. Not to say that they're not a good team, but as far as sometimes mental blocks and being disciplined at the right time, they have a lot to work on. I spoke to Coach White about that, and he knows that is a problematic area as well. You know, in football, you can't win with turnovers and penalties. That's a quick way to lose a game.
What about this guy, Cale Lloyd, the quarterback, who's really starting to play a lot better lately?
That's a good way to put it. Cale Lloyd has started to play a lot better, and Coach White is a disciplined coach. So if those guys aren't doing it right at practice or in school, you'll know it because those players will be sitting on the sideline. So every now and again, Coach White will have Corey Crump, #5, he'll come in, or this was at the beginning of the season, Crump will come in, get a few plays, or Corbin Wilson or Darius Harrison as well would run Wildcat plays. But lately you've seen Cale Lloyd back in the shotgun, how they opened up at the beginning of the season. Coach White uses a spread offense. It didn't really work too well in the first half of Southwest game against Oak Grove, so they kind of switched to a Wildcat offense from the second half of Oak Grove to about maybe the fourth game. That's when you started seeing Cale Lloyd come back into the picture, because it went from Cale Lloyd first half to Wildcat for a couple of games, mixed in with Crump. I believe Crump might have had a start in between, maybe game 2 or 3, which was surprising because I thought Cale Lloyd was going to have a big season.
What about Cale Lloyd last Friday? Threw for quite a few yards.
Yeah, he almost topped 300 yards. Opened up the game with a 67-yarder. Like I said, Corbin Wilson's kickoff return to open the game for 96 yards was called back. So referees put the football, they marked it at the spot of the foul around the 33-yard line. And first play from the shotgun, of course, Cale Lloyd found Darius Harrison in the flats for an out route, which, wasn't really a pass going downfield, but he found the open man.
That seems to be the pass of choice among all these teams, that little out route. Just throw it to the outside, let the receiver run.
Right. On this high school level, the coaches have figured out to not really do too much of the X's and O's. I would say they try to get the football to their athletes and let the athletes do the rest.
And you got Southwest guys like Corbin Wilson, Darius Harrison, those other guys. You got a lot of athletes on this team that can really go.
They do have a lot of athletes. I initially started the season thinking Corbin Wilson was the superstar athlete, in which he is. He's a good ball player, but watching each one of the games, Darius Harrison has really grown into that superstar on that team. They have about 3 or 4. They have 2 or 3 on the defensive side as well.
I'd say Jalen Carl, defensive side, has been pretty consistent every game, right?
I call his name a lot. Jalen Carl, Anthony Palmer, Rob Lange.
Yeah, Rob Lange last week, he had a solid game, 8 total tackles, and I think he had a fumble recovery, maybe a forced fumble. He had 3 or 4 very good points on his stat line.
Yeah, he comes in, and I'm not really sure his stats show each game in the box score because of Jalen Carl. They have another guy as well, I want to say McGinnis, but Jalen Carl pretty much controls that defensive line. Rob Lange is a close 2 behind him. He's a close 2 behind him.
You think about Southwest now, they good shot at the playoffs. Do you see these guys being a playoff team?
They are a playoff team. Their record doesn't reflect how good they are. I think they could probably be a 7-2 team. They played Oak Grove. Oak Grove punched them in the mouth pretty early before Southwest started playing that game, and then they let Page sneak in there and get that win kind of late. So I chat with Coach White here and there, and I told him as well, Coach, I see y'all being a 7-2 ball team.
Making some progress. Coach White's done a good job since he came in. Has some coaching changes, got some new coaches in, some left, came back, that type thing. What about Northwest this week? You've been scouting those guys in because we know, without a doubt, this kid, Tanner Ballou, is very solid for them, their quarterback.
I got to watch Northwest play last year, and they had some unexpected athletes. I remember they had a running back and a wide receiver that pretty much every time they touched the ball, it was double digits when they, get the ball. I haven't seen them personally this year, but I've been following them in the box score. I don't really have an opinion on them because they had a loss to somebody recently that I didn't expect them to lose to. I know you can lose a ball game on a bad night, but that put a question for me.
They're beatable. I think they're a beatable team. I mean, you look at Ballou, the quarterback, going to be solid. The running back, Malik Jones, transfer from Western Guilford, is a very good runner. The wide receivers, Trent Cloud, is as good as anybody. You probably remember last year, Trent Cloud, who wears number 2, I think, one of the best receivers in the state. He had to miss, I think, last week's game or the week before with the injury. He's back for this one this week. Think about both these teams are pretty close together as far as rival type things goes. Big rival game tomorrow at Southwest over at the ranch. So I'm sure since it's the last home game, and who knows, flip a coin, could be the last game for some of these seniors too, and should be a huge crowd. With the weather being good, should be a great crowd tomorrow night too. Yeah,
Southwest home crowd has showed up for them. They definitely have the crowd on their side. So even when Southwest is losing ball games, Coach White has those guys play hard. They don't really give up. So I'm pretty sure either way they're going to come out tomorrow and fight hard. I'm pretty sure those guys all want to make it to the playoffs. They seem to have a 500 season after having such a good season that it doesn't really pay off in the standings for them. But I think they do have a good shot at making the playoffs.
Think about this kid, talking about him, Tanner Ballou. He's the guy just last week eclipsed and topped all the stuff that Rusty LaRue did at Northwest. So for Ballou,
Rusty LaRue,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good numbers. 80 touchdown passes in his career now for Ballou, and over 6,400 yards passing, so not bad.
Okay, yeah, that's good numbers on the high school level, or any level really.
Yeah.
That's good numbers.
We talk about Malik Jones at running back. Ryan Debo plays offense and defense at Northwest. Defense, a guy named Thomas Orrell, who was here earlier with us this year. Andrew Dover, Debo again. Got another kid, Prince Brown. You remember Prince last year is one of those receivers you talked about in the Northwest team last year. Prince Brown, very good receiver.
The Malik Jones kid, did he play running back as well last year?
Yeah, for Western Guilford though last year.
Okay, Western Guilford.
Okay. He transferred over. He's a very good running back. He'll get the ball probably, as far as running backs go, probably 75% of the time. You'll see him carry the ball a lot.
Okay, Northwest had a good running back last year. I remember he was really fast.
Yeah, he made the East West All-Star game, yeah.
Okay.
Mike was his name, little Mike. I'm trying to remember his last name. I always remember people by the first names these days, I guess, but little Mike, very good run. Had 247 yards versus Southeast last year, just tearing it up last year. Last year, Southwest made the playoffs, right? Had that one road game?
Yeah, they had a road game and lost.
Yeah. So this year, they probably want to get that road game maybe again, but make sure they win that first game this year.
I'm pretty sure Coach White wants to get to the state championship and show that they work pretty hard. I was able to go out to a Southwest Guilford practice, and they're trying to go far. I don't think they're just playing for regular season football.
So tomorrow night, we think the key is going to be in that game tomorrow night when they take on Northwest. We think the first key, I'm sure, is going to be try to put pressure on Ballou at quarterback.
Like you stated, Southwest has some pretty good athletes. They're pretty stacked at the skill positions. I think they have a really good shot of winning the football game. The only thing is they have to stay disciplined. Southwest starts their football games off pretty strong. They just make mistakes and penalties at the wrong time. It's not even necessarily how many penalties they make, but it's just the timing of the penalties. They'll have a first down after a turnover in good field position, and they'll get a holding penalty on first down at start 1st and 20, which nullifies the momentum and things like that. It's just costly timing errors with Southwest. So I believe if they stay disciplined and Kel Lloyd just continues to get the football to his athletes, his receivers, hand the ball off, and those running backs continue to run hard, then they'll be fine. Jalen Carl, Anthony Palmer over there on the defensive side, Rob Lange. They've got Natarius Smith. They've got a Tumsa at linebacker. Jaden Graves at cornerback. He's been doing real well all season as far as single coverage. And Crump, he comes up from this free safety position and makes tackles. The only suspect spot for Southwest on defense, really on offense and defense, is the linebacker level. They have a good linebacker, Anthony Palmer, but something I have noticed over the season is once teams get past that defensive line area, it's a big gain. So, you know, like I said, I've spoke to Coach White throughout the season on little things that I've seen as well, and I mentioned that to him. So those will be the 2 pointers. As long as the linebackers come to play, which will be mainly Anthony Palmer and Tumsa, and they cut back on the penalties, I think they'll be fine.
What do you like about calling these games? I mean, you stepped into that role last year with Coach White over at Southwest. He was in as a new coach, wanting to get somebody to announce those games for his people on a regular basis. What do you like about calling these games?
I actually love it. I started out as a TV guy and then jumped on Greensboro Sports Radio with Chris Walser.
Oh, yeah.
So I was his color commentator, and I was supposed to have a color commentator last year. It didn't work out. Tay Lowe was going to be a color commentator with me. Some things happened, behind the scenes where he was not able to make it.
Right.
And I had to call the game, kind of not really an emergency, but I was prepared to call the first game by myself. So I stuck with the same thing during the season, and I've kind of grown into being real comfortable in the booth and calling the games by myself. Sometimes I desire a color commentator and some company in the booth, but I love football, so I'm glued into the football game. I'm getting the score.
Once you start calling a few games by yourself, you said you should be able to do it pretty well. If somebody comes in to help you out sometime, that should be like a cruise or a vacation.
Yeah, very much so a cruise, because you have to.
There's a difference in calling them by yourself and calling them with a partner, that's for sure.
It is, because you have to stay on point as far as there's no breathing room. You're calling things live. You want to get your commercial breaks in there. Technical difficulties, everything is all on you. You have to figure it out. Of course, you can jump on your cell phone and call the producer.
Having a partner with you sometimes, there's a certain little difficulty to take care of on your own. He can keep talking. Maybe it's broadcast, let him do the talking while you're trying to fix things.
Absolutely.
But you're doing it on your own, too. You're also kind of change your time, and your pace is different, too, because you don't talk quite as fast as you would maybe when you talk you talk a little slower when you do it by yourself, kind of fill all those little breathing gaps in, everything work out like that.
Yes. During my education, I learned to not have a bunch of dead air, so I always freak out if I have more than 3-4 seconds of dead air. I have to say something.
Now, going back to your playing days, you played at Grimsley and you played some arena football. You got some pretty good football background going for you.
Yeah, I played at Grimsley, graduate of class of '98. I played with Chad Wright, Brian Smouse, Jay McMillan, B.J. Williams, those guys. Our rival was Page, so Grimsley-Page was last week. Page lost to Grimsley 54-zip. It's not really a big deal these days because Grimsley's been whooping Page like Page was winning over Grimsley in the 80s and 90s. When I spoke to Coach Brown on the field before the game, I asked him were they looking forward to the Grimsley-Page game, and he said that's not something that they really get up for anymore. It's just another game on the schedule. But
not quite like a rival game anymore. And the one team's dominating like they are. It's not much of a rival game. I mean, for the fans, they still enjoy coming out and try to yell back and forth at each other.
Not even the fans no more. I think the fans have maybe lost interest as well. I don't know if you saw pictures, but the Page Stadium was empty.
Was pretty empty.
Yeah, it was pretty empty. And I mean, the Grimsley.
Other than the Page student section.
Student section. But if you go back to those 80s and 90s films, the stadium was full from bleachers, people standing on the track, and all around. So,
did you guys get a win when you were there against Page?
Nah, we were on I think my senior year was year number 29 in a row that we lost. So that streak didn't get broken until 2000.
Quite a run.
Yeah, quite a run for Page.
Who was quarterbacking you guys back when you were there?
It was Brian Smouse.
Coach Smouse's son?
Yep, Coach Smouse's son.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, he had a grandson on the team. Maybe
Tyler
this year.
Smouse. I interviewed him last year when Grimsley played Southwest as well. So
yeah, that's good.
let him know I played for his granddad.
Yeah, Coach Smouse, he was a good coach back in the day.
Yes.
Very much team-oriented, player-oriented, kind of. I think he was kind of one of those they call the players coach kind of guy.
He is a players coach. Coach Smouse has his imprint on a lot of guys in that 80s, 90s, early 2000s era, and we still speak to Coach Smouse to this day.
And you think about it, you go back to some of those guys, you know, you actually came in contact with guys like Will Bradley, with Will Bradley Sports Performance. You were working with him. I think he was at Page maybe about the same time you were coming through, near the time you were coming through. So you guys knew each other for those times.
Yeah, Will Bradley, me and him connected after high school. Like you mentioned, I played arena football. I played for the Greensboro Revolution. And Will Bradley was one of those guys that I met. He was, you know, trying to make the team as a wide receiver. He actually, you know, in my career, I was always considered a receiver with great hands and quickness. I was never fast, but Will is one of those speed guys, and he, you know, actually taught me how to run the 40-yard dash. I used to run a 4.71 in my 40-yard dash. He took me to a 4.59, just teaching me different techniques. So I give Will Bradley credit to this day because I personally know what he teaches works.
Yeah, he's got a nice facility now. I guess back in those days, probably just teach wherever he could find a space to teach you, talk to you.
Yeah. Will's the man. He played football at Temple. We've had football stories before. Just quickly about him, I can relate. No strike to Brian Smouse. That's my guy. Still talk to him today. But you know, one time the newspaper covered after we played Southeast Guilford my senior year, and it stated Demetri Morrison was wide open the whole night, but the quarterback kept throwing it out the back of the end zone, and that kind of happened to Will in Temple. So that's where we connected because, you know, Sean Taylor, rest in peace, he was a free safety for the Miami Hurricanes, and Brandon Merriweather was the next big thing after that. Well, Will Bradley beat Brandon Merriweather 3 times deep that night on ESPN. That's a ticket to the NFL, you know, beating a top safety like that, but his quarterback threw it out the back of the end zone, overthrowing him 3 times. So
you got that? Still got that article from the paper?
I still do. I could bring it to this day.
Well, just have that in there is pretty interesting too. They usually aren't quite that blunt with the paper.
Right. So, and you usually don't mention incomplete passes in an article, but I was that open that, you know, 5 times that could have been 5 touchdowns. But they had to mention it was noteworthy. So that's where me and Will connected.
Some good stuff. Demetri, tomorrow night around 7:15, a pregame crank up?
Not really much of a pregame crank up. This Southwest Guilford, I think they've already done their homecoming. They may have senior night. I haven't spoke to Coach White. I don't really know. But usually they have the band playing. The team is just pretty much trying to stay focused. Other than that, I don't really see Southwest Guilford doing too many pregame celebrations. Coach White is about business.
What time do you start your work?
I usually hop on about 7:25. I'll call my producer, make sure he hears me, everything's going cool. Try to call him as late as possible. When I call him early, I feel like I have a problem.
You feel like everything's under control.
Yeah. So I've been getting to the field about 45 minutes to an hour before time. At the beginning of the season, there was kind of some Wi-Fi issues. Things have worked out now. Got the soundboard in check. I haven't had an issue in about 3 to 4 weeks, so everything's good on my end. Yeah, knock on wood. You know how the production is, so everything's been going smooth.
New challenge every week.
New challenge every week.
No matter if you're home or away, doesn't matter.
It could be a microphone stop working.
Ragsdale last week, right?
Yes. I'll be back at Southwest.
Coach Jones, AD Jones, she was pretty good to you over there, Debbie Jones?
Yes. She didn't get my email that I sent over to let her know that I was coming, but she had no problem. Everywhere that I've been this year, they welcomed me with open arms. Everything's been pretty good.
Good stuff. Demetri, thank you.
All right, Andy.
Hope to see you back again soon.
Okay.
We'll listen for your games tomorrow night.
All right.
Demetri Morrison with us, Football in Focus, over at the Tee It Up Indoors on Battle.